Yeah, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Eureka Conservative podcast for Tuesday night, our main and most formal podcast. I'm now doing the daily podcast that have my little Bible rant and, sorry, not my Bible rant, my Bible reading, followed by my little rant about the day's events. So they're proving to be a little bit popular, which is good. I don't know what's going on. Sorry, I'm just trying to figure something out here, guys. Sorry. So here we go. Just trying to make my YouTube channel. I'm a bit rushed this week. Trying to make sure my YouTube channel, I just did my little check while everyone's getting on that my video and mic are working. So I'm just going to have a quick look in there, make sure we're all good to go, and then we'll get started. So yeah, it's been a busy day today. Work is taken not a toll, but it's here we go. I'm live. Yeah, here we go. Beautiful. It's all working. So yeah, I'll restart again. So this is our main formal for me and my boy JJ. He's always next to me, my sidekick, looking as excited as ever. He hates it when I do this stuff. He'll just get on there, give me the evil eye. He'll end up falling asleep, but he does hate it. He wants to go for WALKs or get some food or do something else. It's not what a dog really wants is his old man sitting here talking to a bunch of people on social media. Doesn't excite him one little bit. So, yeah, we've been doing the daily Bible read in tribute to Charlie Kirk for his Christian faith and his politics, the way he pushed it. So that's working out pretty well. Getting a lot of impressions. I've hit 10,000 followers this week, so I've been reading up on impressions because apparently you can potentially make an income once you get to a following that size. So I'm not going to lie, if I can make $1 or $2 out of doing this, I'll never sell my opinions as some do. But I was reading up on it. You need to make so with 10,000 followers or something, I'm well past the criteria for monetizing whatever I do on X, but you need something, I think it's 3 million impressions in 3 months, 1 million a month. I'm not very close to that, I don't think. So I've got a bit of work to do ahead of me, but there's a few other criteria you got to meet. But anyway, I'm going to do a bit of research into that, and who knows, might be able to make some sort of dollars out of doing this. We'll see how we go. So next week, we'll be talking of that, because look, it's not cheap on doing this all the time. So I'm going to be doing you'll see it with a lot of other followers. If you like what we do, we'll introduce the old buy me a coffee thing, and feel free to contribute if you would like. Not expecting anyone to. Certainly not going to do what Dave Smith did today that I saw, which was, he's got a subscription there where apparently, he's just a comedian. He's no expert, and I don't even consider him a good debater. But he'll charge up to $250 a month for his content. I'm going, oh God, I'll never be charging that much. It's a bit rich, actually. Good luck to him. I'm never going to knock anybody for wanting to make $1. So if he can do that and he can make $1 out of it, good luck to him. So anyway, mine will be voluntary. And if you want to and you think it's a good thing and you can shout a cup of coffee, feel free. I love my coffee. Despite what that English actor said about Melbourne coffee. It's one of the still good things I think about Melbourne. We still make a good coffee. So just in case I'm confusing anyone, Tuesday night podcasts are totally dedicated, not to a Bible read. They're totally dedicated to a policy. So conservative policy and what we're going to be putting towards conservative politicians from across all the parties in the next, well, it's getting less than 12 months now. We said over the next 12 months when I first started this thing. So before the end of this year, before they all break away for their holidays. So I would say by the end of this month or early next month, we'll be communicating with a bunch of politicians and start presenting the policies that we're coming up with. Over the holidays, the Christmas holidays, I'll be putting a lot more meat on the bones for these policies. So, which will take a bit of work because we're announcing a fair bit, which you're about to see. So tonight is all politics. Don't think I'm not going to go all evangelistic on you, which I try not to do with my daily stuff anyway. Like I said, that's just a tribute to Charlie Kirk that we'll continue to do. Just once a day, we'll get on. We'll do that Bible read. Takes me probably a minute, if that. and then I just have a little rant to or a big rant. Some days it's a big rant. I had a very good one the other day. It's actually very therapeutic because I'm getting things off my chest. Hold on, one thing I've forgotten is the comments. There we go. Feel free, guys, if you want to comment. I'm looking for some interaction. I'm looking for some guests. So I don't care who you are. You don't have to have a high profile. You just have to have a good opinion. And I don't care whether it's left, right, indifferent, communist, Marxist, whatever you want to talk about, NSN. I'm happy to have you on, and we can have a good old discussion and debate and give some people something to watch. So feel free to join me anytime you like. I will be making official approaches to some others that I've had on in the past and some others that have indicated interest. A lot of people don't want to get on social media and do this sort of stuff. So I really do get that because they don't want to put their faces out there. You know, I don't really particularly want to put my face out there, not because it's about it being known. Probably it's not the most attractive face to be putting on social media. But anyway, if we're all going to have an opinion, if we're going to try and make this country better, we've got to get out there and push our point of view. Now, whether that's via a march or whether that's via a podcast or whether that's via writing an article, whether that's lobbying MPs, we've got to get our country to a point that we can change the course of what's currently going on. And there's a lot of shitty things that are going on in our country. So anyway, there's my preamble. Next, we're going to go to policy. So I'll share my screen. I think we've got a pretty good policy tonight, and it's a pretty appropriate one. Part one, there it is. We'll share the screen and make sure we've got it up. Yeah, we have got it up. So I'll just make sure I've got part one. Yep, part one. Very good. So as you can see on that pillar of economy and finance, affordable home ownership. Now, affordable home ownership applies to two things. Obviously, home ownership, but it also applies to rentals and getting both the demand for rentals down while meeting the demand for home ownership. To me, this is a really, I don't know why it's such a hard problem for our politicians to understand. It is like anything in a capitalist society. The less of a product you have with high demand, the more expensive it's going to be. The more of that product you can introduce into the market, then the costs will come down and they'll plateau out because there's competition. It's that simple. The reason costs are so high is because it's such a hard market to get into, and there's so many people bidding for properties. So real estate agents and homeowners can sell these properties for inflated prices because people, both here and big thing overseas, can afford to bid for them. So we need to reduce demand where we can bring those prices down, or at least get them to settle for a decade as wages catch up. So while the solution I don't think is that hard to understand, and we've got some interesting ideas, it's probably going to take a while to get it in place. But for example, Albo's 5% deposit for first home buyers is not going to solve the problem. It's going to bring more buyers into the market, not less, with less properties being built because they're not meeting the quota of their properties that they said they were going to build, not by any shape or means. And all they're going to do is put young Australians into a lifetime of debt. And because they're opening it up to everyone across the globe, we're going to get a bunch more foreign ownership. So they're basically destroying further the ability of Australians to own a property. Now, the goal we're going to have in this policy is if we implement a lot of this, we want to implement so hard that property becomes once again something that you can afford on one income. So if you've got a one-income household and you want someone to stay home and raise the kids, you can do that, which is exactly what Australia used to be. You know, back in the old traditional nuclear families, which we went over last week, back in the 50s and 60s, which, funnily enough, a lot of on the left decry. They called it, the white picket fence and all that sort of thing. Well, that era in the 50s and 60s, the head of the household, which was predominantly the male, could go get a job, get employment, and on that employment afford to buy a car, a house, send his kids to school, and a proper school, private or public, and, you know, afford a holiday, all that sort of thing. And they could do that on one income and live pretty comfortably. That is now impossible. We've made the economy so bad. So anyway, we believe these measures would help reduce demand, increase the product, which is houses, into the market, help in restoring the building industry and getting more kids into trades. And in doing that, also take the pressure off the major cities. So there's two parts to it, as most of my policies are becoming at the moment. So home ownership, I'll go through it. Forgive any grammar errors. I've been rushing on this. I know I make a few. I'll fix them as time goes on. Home ownership is now out of reach for many Australians, and what used to be an Australian dream has for many turned into a nightmare. I don't think anyone can argue with that. This policy lists common sense ideas and initiatives to bring housing prices to far more affordable prices, making home ownership and securing rental properties easier for all Australians. The first step would be, which we've already announced this, a 10-year freeze on immigration. And as I say, you can refer to our policy on this. Now, in an interim, in some of that policy, you may have to give some exemptions. So hear me out. If we don't have enough skilled labour to meet the demand and bring more housing in, we may have to look for the short term as we educate and get more of our young ones into trades to bring people in from overseas who can help us meet that demand. And I'm not talking necessarily from one or two countries. I'm talking from countries that have similar building requirements and standards to what ours. So probably England, UK, same thing, England, Europe, America, countries like that, and bringing them across. And a lot of those guys would love to come out here for 3, 4, 5 years. So there would be exemptions if we need it, but the first priority is to get Australians into these jobs that could do it and fast track them. Our next step would be to ban foreign ownership of Australian rental. That should actually say residential properties, but residential properties are rental properties. So basically that would take, a fair stake of the market out. Real estate agents will not be happy with that because they make a killing from foreign millionaires. So in the middle income populace of places like China and India, there's a lot of very well-off people, and they would love to come over here, get a property here, whether they use it for rental property, whether they use it for their shift over here, if they, for example, do business on the internet. We've got to have Australian property for Australians first and Australians only. So if they want to get a property, they need to be an Australian citizen. That will take some time to own a property. Now, can they rent it properly if they immigrate here and they take time to get a citizenship? Yes. But foreign ownership, no. Foreign ownership has got to be going towards Australians first and only. So one thing I should say on that is not for at least this stage. I don't believe that should be applied to ownership of corporate properties or industrial areas, because to build our economy and our industrial base, we need foreign investment. So I'm talking just residential properties only. An opening of green spaces to release land for residential development would be crucial. They want to build these monstrosities on train stations that go 20 stories high, and we have New York apartment living, which we don't bloody need. We have enormous amounts of space in this country that just gets locked away more and more every year, whether that's for environmental purposes, whether that is for indigenous heritage purposes. We've got to start opening this up. Now, that was also addressed in our Republican policy. So a lot of these policies are now fitting in. So we could have the opportunity to address that as we go forward. To do so, we would need the political courage to stare down the Greens and any environmentalist on the left, which is pretty much everyone on the left. So the ALP, the Greens, the Teals, the whole lot of them. So you got to get the centre right in a power, and they've got to stare them down, and we got to open up those spaces. The media will come for whoever comes in with that policy, draw the line in the sand and go for it. I think we need a review of native title. It would need to be undertaken to explore more ways to deliver land for development. You can't build houses if you don't have land. And native title covers a lot of regional land, which you're about to see what we're about to go into. So you need to open up land via green spaces and also through native title, so we can build that product to put into the market. An emphasis must be made on guiding young adults, especially young men, into the trade sector that specialises especially in the building of homes. All right, so that would be a priority. We would be trying to get young adults into the trade sector that supports the building industry. It's one thing to have land, but you've got to be able to build homes. You can't build homes unless you have the trades to do it. The removal of, and one big thing that goes against the trade sector or the building industry is council red tape, planning laws, all that sort of thing. So we would look at the removal of overbearing and unnecessary red tape at all levels of government. That review would be undertaken, obviously. In that review, the building industry would be consulted extensively to discover ways we can streamline the process to make it more efficient and less costly. The last thing we need in any review like that is bureaucrats. We need people who've got boots on the ground, who understand the building industry, who understand the cost between getting houses built and how we can streamline that. Now, we don't want to sacrifice safety, obviously, but there's got to be ways we can get rid of unnecessary red tape. You do that, houses get built quicker, and more importantly, they get built in a cheaper manner. There was a story out not long ago that half the cost of housing goes towards some sort of taxation or red tape costs implemented by all three levels of government. So we've got to look at ways that we can reduce that dramatically. We need to get people out of major cities to relieve the demand on house auctions and rentals in those cities. At the moment, we all see these ridiculous lines of people stretching around blocks just to compete for residential rentals. So whether that's apartments, whether that's a house on a block, whatever it is, and a lot of that comes from the immigration, and especially within a city with student immigration. So when we're talking about banning immigrants, we're talking about banning student immigration. It's about time the university sector stood on its own 2 feet and catered predominantly for Australian kids. Now, Australian kids aren't going to need that same sort of rental because, if they get a university spot close to home, they can still live at home while they're getting their degree. To do this, we need to implement a strategy to also develop regional cities. Why are we cramming every bit of immigration into our major cities? Australia is a massive continent with massive landmass, and yet we want to push all our immigration into these small areas into our cities. We should be looking to develop major city centres in the regions, turning smaller cities into larger cities, turning small towns into regional cities. We have different ideas on what that can entail. These regional cities would need to be designed to become the centres of industry, technology, and manufacturing. If we did that, the cost of setting up a business, and we need to bring in some sort of legislation where it encourages industry, corporations, companies to go to these centres to employ people, to bring them in from the cities and get them into these regional lives where life is cheaper and easier anyway. So we need, if we do that, one, you build up the economy for the regions. Number two, you're taking away the demand for properties in the cities, and you're relieving all the infrastructure that you're going home and you're putting it out elsewhere. That would lead to extra jobs for the regions, whether it's through those industries, whether it's through the building industry that's going to be making a lot more residentials for these larger populations, and it would spread our population for Australia on a far more even basis. Stick with me. I'm off to number two. I'll replace this. Replace share screen is. So we are now on to just double checking. Yes, we're on part two. An emphasis will be put on developing AI centres within these regional city developments. They would be supported, yes, by small modular nuclear reactor technology. So this is something that Dutton tried to, well, he put up, but then he didn't fight for it in the last election. It needs to come into play. So we need to find out ways that we can put that nuclear reactor technology into these regional centres. Now, there are ways, for example, that you have to have it close to water or whatever. You can find ways and means to do that, but you have to have that as your goal. AI needs massive energy grid power. So with any of these regional ones, you need to plonk those AI centres in those regions. And that will, again, draw a high level of IQ technology centred individuals into those regions and get them out of the cities. Everyone wins when that happens. We can't be having that extra energy grid demand on our cities. So if you're a regional city, I mean, why in God's name wouldn't you take this on board and invigorate your towns, your cities, your regions, and make your economy so much stronger? So AI is going to be something we all need. We need those research, and in Australia especially, we need to start to be catching up. So I would suggest you need one AI centre, for example, in each state minimum. So research, and here's an interesting left the field option. And for all you Jew haters, if there's any that watch me, you're probably not going to like this because got this from Israel. They have been the leading experts on research and development of desert reforestation methods, especially those being used in Israel that convert deserts into forest. The Australian outback is largely just ignored. We should be taking advantage of that outback. Again, there's massive land masses there. And if you could combine, in the next point, a sophisticated irrigation system, such as the past Bradfield scheme, which was developed in 1938, to connect Australia's river and lake systems through a combination of dams and irrigation, to capture Australia's abundant rainfall areas, this needs to be investigated and implemented. So for those who don't know the Bradfield scheme was designed in the Northern Territory, Queensland, northern parts of New South Wales. In their rain seasons, they get massive amounts of rain. We should be capturing that rain, and there's other parts of Australia where it does. And what Bradfield was doing, there should be an interlocking system of dams, water irrigation, and all that flows into parts of area that may suffer from drought. We should combine that with this deep desert reforestation methods into our outback areas to create new regional areas where we can build new regional cities. We can build new communities. We can actually give some incentive for people to get out of our major cities and get everyone off our shores and build inland. We've got to become the modern version of what America was when America immigrated westward. And now they've got the 50 states. We've got this massive amount of land inland in the outback areas. Not all of it's going to be inhabitable, but we could convert a lot of it, and we need to research what Israel does. You do all that, and now you're taking pressure off the residential. Now, that is a 10 to 20-year project, but you only get there if you get the ball rolling. So that's certainly something we need to be looking into. In doing this, we would open the entire region of outback Australia for future regional cities and residential development. Any future immigration planning would need to include new Australians. So after our 10-year freeze, new Australians coming in here, or anyone who gets an exemption, they're to be guided, probably a better word is encouraged, to these regional centres to avoid overcrowding our major cities, as we're doing currently. Finally, a total review of our taxation, ownership and investment laws that cover residential development with its primary objective to make housing affordable on a single income basis once again. So that's what I was saying before. We need to get to a point where a family can live and buy and pay off a home, pay off a car, live a comfortable life, and be able to do that off one income. People say that's impossible. I say, well, if you say something's impossible, it always will be. You've got to have that goal in the back of your mind. So to do that, you've got to mitigate house prices and demand. You've got to bring that down where it's far more affordable. And over a 10, 20-year period, we can give our young ones a real chance at home ownership. If they're 20 now and they can get their first home 25, 30, they'll have it paid off in their 40s and 50s. And they'll be able to then enjoy a good life. At the moment, it's looking increasingly impossible simply because our politicians don't have the balls to address a lot of these issues. All of these initiatives would see a drop in demand, streamline planning and legislation, and provide incentives for people to move away from condensed cities. All of that will bring down house prices. Because why? You're putting more product into the market. You're giving incentive for people not to live in condensed areas, so where they're not going to be the bidding and the price wars that are currently going on. Just banning foreign ownership would be a big help. All those sorts of things going on. So, there's a lot more to add on that once we do our comprehensive part to it, but that is where we would take our home ownership policy. So they've already gone up, and I'll share this with you again. They've already gone up on our website. I'll get that policy platform. As you'll see in a minute, it is becoming increasingly busy on this page. So every week we're adding something to this. And you'll see as we go on. So there are our policy pillars that we're adding to. Christianity, we only got one. I'm going to have to get busy there. Nationalism, we got a heap. Governance, we got a heap. We've actually got a huge amount on governance. Justice is building. Economy and finance, we started adding there tonight. Hope and innovation. Probably could put actually, I will do that. I'll add our housing policy in there for hope and innovation because I think that's exactly what it is. Introducing hope into families across this continent to be able to own their own piece of land. And nothing will increase patriotism more than someone owning a part of this country. And we've got to get back well and truly to that. So there'll be obviously those in the political circles that won't be happy about that. Sorry, I'm just trying to get rid of this again. I'll get my ugly mug back. Stop screen and sharing. So that is our latest policy. So as you can see, it's building. It's getting to a point where even if once we contact these politicians, they can have a look through it. Now, I've been banging on a little bit lately about, the perfect not being the enemy of the good. So I'm not obviously expecting every politician to embrace everything I put on there. But if we put enough forward and they embrace only 10% of it, that's a start. I think there's a lot more a politician can embrace. And I would challenge anybody that on the policy we're putting up, one, that it's not conservative, and number two, it wouldn't help restore Australia to what it once used to be. So, and that's where we want to be going to. So I'll be arguing for a lot more than 10%. But it'll be interesting, the feedback, once I share this, which will be this week, with our conservative-minded politicians and further, what people will start thinking about it. So if you've got any ideas to add to these policies, I'd love to hear them. I'm by no means the well of all intelligence, especially when it comes to things like the economy. I'd love to get some ideas from different people. And even if you want to write your own policy for us to consider to put up and include it in that platform, we'd be rapt to hear about it. Now, just so you know, any policy that goes on our platform has to have a conservative bend. It has to have a nationalistic bend. Australia for Australians, pretty much. We're not against immigration here. We're not NSN. But, if people are immigrating to this country, they've got to decide whether they want to be Australians or whether they want to keep their old culture. It's simple as that. So we've got a policy on that. So we cover the bases here. And the other part, we want to be a Christian-based country. So do you have to be a Christian? No, but you have to adopt our Christian principles as part of our heritage? Yes, you do. Absolutely you do. So if you got ideas for that sort of concept, then by all means, bring them forward. We'd love to see it. And I think if we can get this right, it's actually more powerful, for example, than anything like these marches that go out there. And I'll tell you why it's more powerful, because you're actually putting forward a plan to change the country. A lot of these marches have got 2-3 themes, and by the time you get up onto the speakers talking, by the end of the time they finish talking, you're actually a bit confused what the marches are all about. So I think this gives some directive, it gives some content, and it gives some context on how we get our country back. So I think it can be very powerful and give some people some real policy content to consider. And, whether they want to get behind of us. Now, no policy platform that you put out there, you're going to get 100% support. But if people can come on, then they can have like a 70-30, so where they support 70% of what we're saying and not support 30%, then that's fine. That's a win. In politics, all you need is 51% to win that vote. In fact, these days, it's a lot less. All you need is, as Albo's shown, worst prime minister we've ever had, I reckon. You need 36% of the vote. So you can get there, the rest of it on preferences. So that is our housing policy, along with a lot. It's becoming pretty extensive now. Got a couple of policies I've just got to brush up and finish off, where they say more to come. And I will probably look into doing that next week, because I think we're getting to a real point now that we can start putting this now to politicians. There's still a lot of other areas to cover, which we'll continue covering. Victorian elections coming up next year, so we're running out of time on that. We'll hit November very soon. All the pollies will go away, and by the time we come back in the new year, we're in an election year, and we'll be barreling towards a state election. And the polls at last are showing that the ALP could be on the way out, but it's pretty close. So, libertarians, pull your finger out. Pauline, Malcolm, pull your finger out. Get us some One Nation people down here. Because if you guys were ever considering getting a balance of power, I reckon your chances at this state election are pretty strong. So LNP, pull your finger out. As much as I love the Libertarians, especially in Victoria, the Victorian Libertarians, I respect a great deal. I respect Pauline Hanson, but we don't have a lot of One Nation in Victoria. What we got to get rid of is these so-called independents in the upper house. The Animal Justice or the Legalised Cannabis Party or even the Shooters and Fishers Party. Get rid of them and put them in with people with legitimate ideas, a legitimate policy platform. So I had a question the other day. I haven't replied to it. I'm going to have to. Is, what makes you different from Jared Rennick's party? Well, what makes us different is we're not a party. It's just me. Just me coming up with policy platforms and putting them out there. And people can accept them or reject them or whatever. So if you're going to complain about the state that Australia's in, then I say you've got to come up with ideas that'll make it better. So if I get absolutely nowhere with this, at least, by the end of the next federal election, I'll be able to say at my time in life, well, I did what I could to make things better. So then I can move on if I want to, quite happily at that stage and say, I gave it a go. So that's all you want to do, give it a go. And that used to be a big Australian thing. So anyway, there's a bit of a rant, a bit of a policy development. And as we always do on a Tuesday, this is your first time here with me, we go through the news of the day by going through our social media feed, which I'll get onto now on our X. That's not there. Sorry, I'll try. Here we go. Now it's up. So we'll scroll through a thing. I say time to save a lot, so we'll just go through our main one. Today our thoughts with the Jewish people. No, they're not. Why so much? Sadly, can't let this happen. The final days of British Steel. Chinese owners are preparing for its closure. Britain invented the steel industry, a key part of powerhouse industrial. What's going on here? Base, but sadly, Britain's industries have been hollowed out, sold off, and communities left to rot. Well, that's what we're doing here in Oz. So get out of that. Matt Canavan, good man. We've got to get him into a leadership position in our government. Climate change is driving up insurance costs, making homes uninsurable. Bullshit. Australians are paying the price for all disaster. They just never stop with the propaganda. It's all bullshit. Stranger. He's an ALP through and through. Bloody idiot. Anyway, Australia versus how Julian Grant has appointed the E-Safety Commissioner to destroy freedom of speech in Australia. Let's have a listen. It only goes for 2-3 minutes.
I'm about to show you why freedom of information is so important in this country. Now, I put in so many requests over the last few months, and I just got a result for one of them. This was a freedom of information request that I put in a few months ago, demanding the details of how Julie Inman Grant was selected to become the Australian E-Safety Commissioner. And I finally got the proof of how this was done. So here's the story of Australia's E-Safety Commissioner, Julie Inman Grant. In 2016, the job for E-Safety Commissioner was made public. 18 applications were made for the role. 5 candidates were selected for formal interviews, and those interviews took place between Wednesday, the 31st of August and the 1st of September 2016. At the conclusion of those interviews and a reference check, the committee was unanimous in selecting 3 candidates that could undertake the role. And who was selected as Australia's E-Safety Commissioner? Julie Inman Grant. What were her qualifications? Well, just like Daniel Andrews, she had a Bachelor of Arts. So in 2016, her role was made public. 18 applications were made for that role of E-Safety Commissioner. But what happened in 2021? Liberal Communications Minister Paul Fletcher sent out this letter and said, the appointment of E-Safety Commissioner is considered a significant government appointment. We need to veto the whole application process and make sure that the Prime Minister's discretion is going to be used to seek agreement for the reappointment of E-Safety Commissioner Julie Inman-Grant. They did not follow the first procedure that they used in 2016, and they just gave her the job again. Now, this is the last part that I'm going to put in this clip, and I'll attach the whole document on our website so you guys can read it for yourself. In 2021, Paul Fletcher signed off on this letter. He said, Miss Inman-Grant's remuneration is going to be $360,000, but it's going to go up from that to $415,000, and it's going to take effect once the Online Safety Act commences in 2021. And now what's happening in 2025, 2026? The Online Safety Act has come around to screw us. She's getting paid damn near $500,000 to do it. She wasn't reappointed on merit. She was reappointed through cabinet veto by Scott Morrison. And like I said, I'm going to upload this on the website later tonight. Make sure you follow me on X at @OzVersusTheAgenda. That's the website there. I'm going to post a link there later tonight, and you'll be able to read the full document on how Julie Inman-Grant was appointed.
He does some good stuff, this guy. I lost a bit of time for him when he had one of the NSN guys on, Joel Davis, and he just let him talk for an hour and a half. There's definitely a sympathy towards the NSN, so I can't be a fan of anyone who does that, but he does some good stuff. I'll give him credit on that one. That's amazing. Paul Fletcher and Scott Morrison, two turds in a bottle. Seriously. Just snakes. They just, between them and Turnbull, it's such a pity. I know a lot of you don't like the LNP. And listen, I have my beefs with them. But the Liberal Party, the LNP, used to be a force for good in this country. But people like Turnbull, Morrison, even Dutton to a degree, have just let the country down to such a big thing. I'm hoping Hastie can bring it back. I really am, because we need it. We need it in this country. We need an opposition. So that is really disappointing. Anyway, back to the old. Let's have a look at our X feed. Oh, I took my glasses off. That wasn't a smart idea. Here we go. X. That is unbelievable, isn't it? Paul Fletcher. He never did like that man. Did really like Morrison. Oh, yeah, we're getting more pictures out of Gaza. We'll move on from that. Had enough of Gaza over the last 2 years. Here we go. What's this? Had everything about you. They even hate your infants. You can apologise for their precarious and can give them thing. Nothing will ever change this. That's just disgraceful. October 7th, today is the anniversary, so we're going to get a bunch of this feed. Yep, Hamas and the Palestinians, evil bastards. So don't want to go there. High cost. Here we go. Australian Institute. That is just a think tank for the ALP. This guy, Richard Dennis, total ALP prick. He will push their agenda like you wouldn't believe. If you get anything out of the Australian Institute, sounds a nice name, but it's just an ALP think tank. Unless we got 2 years on, remembering like that. The 7th. I don't know. Isn't this cultural appropriation where you wear a kafaifa or whatever they call it? The hero. Is this serious? Sorry, I've got to have a listen.
What happened to us over the last 3 days was I've learned the Israelis are not human. They have hands, they have faces, but they are not one of us. They are monsters. They took out our water, they took away food. We were 37 miles from Gaza. I could see Gaza. Next time, we can do it, inshallah. Next time. And the Israelis did not have enough vessels to stop us. So I saw it. I saw Gaza. What happened to us over the last 3 days?
If I was the Israelis, I'd let it go. Let it go see Gaza and then see what happens. She'd last 5 minutes. I mean, I don't get white liberal women. I don't get them. They have it so good in Western countries, but they hate the Western countries. It's she wouldn't last 5 minutes. She'd be gone. She'd probably be raped in 5 minutes, killed in 30, and then have a body displayed or buried in a tunnel somewhere. I mean, does she not watch? Oh, I don't get them. I don't get white liberal women. I saw Gaza. No, you didn't. I would let you go to Gaza. But anyway, what else is on? Candace. What I agree with that thought. I just don't anything that Candace says these days. And had you been watching today, she let out these chat. And look, I've got teenagers who can do up chat talks like she's put up there today. There's no way. There's a lot of people jumping up and down because they want it to be true. That think this is proof. It's proof of nothing. I do a lot of image stuff with Canva. You could do that on Canva without any issue whatsoever. You could design and type in chat. You could do it in 10 minutes. Easy. And she's only put a little bit of part of that chat on there. She hasn't put the whole context. Why is the whole chat not on there? Why hasn't she published the whole thing? She's a manipulative, lying snake. And she personally, I don't think she's worth your time, but I spent a bit of time. I'll put my hand up on that. Oh, yeah. Don't want to watch that again. Oh, Abby. Apparently she's having issues with mental health because of the trolling. Abby. Who else have we got here? Sorry, guys. Like I said, I didn't have much time to go through all this. Grok will make a movie that is at least watchable for the end. So now Grok images generates realistic movie scene. Grok, this image generation is amazing. Also very frightening. You're not going to be able to tell, you probably can't already, you're not going to be able to tell reality from fiction very soon. And that's a dangerous place for us to be going. That's from a while ago, disgraceful. These sort of petitions, I think, are a bit, good on you, Tim Joe. I just don't think they get us anywhere. But anyway, I could be totally wrong, and I really respect the crap out of Tim. He's a good man. I'll sign it. I don't know whether it'll get us anywhere. I don't know. An amazing four corners on gambling. People against gambling. Do you ever look at something and wonder how in the world it got there? I don't, Katie. That's brilliant. Do you ever look at something? Classic. I reposted that. Oh, sorry, guys. I'll give it a quote. Oh, that is funny. Oh, that's really good. Very good question, too. I've got to put some emojis there. Sorry, guys. Just give me a tick. That is so funny. I love it. Share it with my leftist friends. All right, let's go into our bookmarks. I'll see if I've got anything in there. I did add a few. So I do use the bookmarks because sometimes you see something really good that could be good for the program. And, it ends up scrolling down your feed and you lose it. But if I put it in the bookmark, you don't. Rob's a very good person to follow if you don't follow him. He puts up a lot of good stuff. And I think this is actually really important. Who's behind all these radical leftists that are, like he's put it, well-funded and organised radical leftists appear to be supported by foreign actors. ASIO needs to look into the funding structure of these outfits. Like Trump's doing in America, he's just declared Antifa a terrorist group, and they're looking into people like George Soros to fund these things. How do these people in the middle of the day get to go protest when the rest of us are all out working so we can pay rent? I mean, who's funding all this stuff? Don't tell me it's all organic. It's not. It's actually well organised. You've only got to look at these marches against mass immigration. God bless those people. They're trying to organise it, but that pales in comparison to these pro-Palestinian marches. They're very well organised. You can hate them. I hate them to death. But you can also respect the fact how well organised they are. But there would be a lot of work that goes into that. And look at the faces of these people up here. Seriously. I mean, if these are Australians, they're just giving away their heritage, what our forefathers fought for. Our forefathers in World War I, you've only got to read any good book. I can't remember, Les Caroline. He had a good book about World War I and what our forefathers, our Anzac forefathers went through in the Middle East. Because everyone knows about Gallipoli and the battles in the Somme, but Australia fought through what is now Israel or Palestine or whatever you want to call it, with their charge at Beersheba. They helped liberate Jerusalem and Damascus, and they hated these Palestinian bastards, hated them. Read up the thing about what they went through. They actually surrounded one city because a group of the Arab thugs, as they called them back then, not Palestinians, they'd killed an Aussie soldier, an Aussie digger. Well, that was a big mistake because the diggers basically cut off that town and just bloody took an awful revenge on a lot of those Arabs. And in my book, rightly so. So I've got to play this idiot because he's an idiot. And
Member for Fairfax travelled the world talking about nuclear energy, and he put videos out about that. My personal favourite was what we can learn from Hiroshima, Mr. Speaker, when it came to him selling nuclear energy. But the current Shadow Minister continues in the same vein. He spent the last couple of weeks in the United States. Good on him, fair enough. He put up an 8-minute video on YouTube about his trip, Mr. Speaker. I watched it so that you don't have to. You're welcome. And having watched that video, we can tell some things. He did not visit any small modular reactors, advanced modular reactors or micro reactors, perhaps due to the small technical detail that none exist, Mr. Speaker. There were none to see, but he did go to the National Laboratory in Idaho. What his video didn't tell us is that was the site for the NuScale small modular reactor, which was cancelled last year because it was so expensive and because no one would buy the power from it because the power was so expensive. That was the small modular reactor that the member for Fairfax had as the image on his website. It's time to talk nuclear, Mr. Speaker. There is no nuclear renaissance. There is just a renaissance of silly ideas from the opposition. Member for Fairfax.
This guy talks to everyone else about silly ideas, yet he keeps calling us a renewable superpower. There was a study that came out this week. I think it was because of some sort of hearing or Senate thing they did, and it just revealed the truth about the insanity of the cost of this renewables nonsense that this fool is putting us through. And he is a fool. He's a dead set idiot. I would love to see him have the courage to take on someone like Ian Pilmer, who would just tear him to bits in any debate, but he just likes slinging insults across the chamber like he's doing there. So the guy's a fool. He's going to bankrupt us. He's going to destroy our economy, and we got to get him rid of him out, which is why I'm talking that we need to, a lot recently, how we need to swing behind Hastie and Price. We've got to get them in the leadership of the LNP. We've got to get this ALP government out. It's going to cause a lot of damage, but if they get another term in, it's going to be even worse. So we've got to do whatever we can. I think Lisa here shares that opinion, integrity. I've been thinking that about a lot lately. I feel there's one thing missing from politics and leadership across the West, and that's the genuine integrity. That's why we want Andrew Hastie as Prime Minister. I look across the Parliament floor one by one, see people who are brought by unions, by business or by renewable oligarchs. Then I remind myself of the money and power we as citizens have given these politicians. We trust them when they present as their to represent us. Then the minute they're elected, we realise we've fallen for a bait and switch. They have no integrity. Just look at Victoria as an example. Can't argue with any of that. Most politicians are either self-serving or openly working against that. Can't disagree with that. Think about how that now we pay their salaries and are forced to watch on while they deliberately undermine us and try to silence us. We need a parliament full of real people with genuine integrity. What we've got now is dark and damaging. I would agree with all of that. And I would agree giving this man a thumbs up. We don't have a lot of options, but I think he would be very good. Some wouldn't. He's an interesting one. It does show the fight we're in. This might be it. And close to our last one. We're getting close to 9 o'clock. 58% of Australians agree that a genocide is happening in Gaza, according to a YouGov poll commissioned by the Australian Palestinian Advocacy Network. Well, there you go. You can really believe that. 88% of Greens voters, 72% of Labor voters were among those who agreed with the UN report on Gaza. But I think if you have any reasonable research into that, there is no real evidence for a genocide. All right. Now, is there unfortunate death over there? Is there a lot of it? Yes, there has been for decades, well before October 7th, 2023. But a genocide, that's a big call. There was a thing the other day how the population of Gaza has actually risen, not gone down. So, you hear about all the starvation, but then when you hear a protest or these people come on, they're all well fed. You get the odd one that's not well fed, but then the people in the streets doing their protests, whatever, they all look very well fed. So, you can't believe anything that comes out of any Palestinian group because they just talk shit, So anyway, sadly, it's obviously working. So, that's the koala. The Victorian Labor government, through the Department of Energy, Environment and Climate Action, has been caught red-handed in one of the most shameful wildlife scandals in living memory. Now, remember, these are the bastards that lecture us all the time about the environment and welfare and animals. We're talking about Decca's secret helicopter slaughter of over 1,000 koalas at Budj Bim National Park down in southwest Victoria, about halfway between Hamilton and Portland. Let that sink in. A beloved endangered icon riddled with bullets from the sky, mothers left dying, Joey's orphaned, all buried under layers of bureaucratic spin and political cover-ups. I agree. It was one of the most disgraceful episodes to ever take place. Gone through all those in previous ones, so I won't bore you with that. See if there's any more in my politics. Julian Hill. Tony Burke is the biggest snake in Australian politics. The next one closest behind him is this prick. To leak correspondence from Labor's Assistant Manager for Citizenship, Julian Hill, to mayors across the country, urging them to hold larger and more frequent citizenship ceremonies now that Labor is fast-tracking processing of applications. Now, this comes after Albo wants to bring in more electorates in metropolitan areas. There's a clear strategy: increase immigration, pound them into the metro areas, give them citizenship, and then start electorates that they think are going to lean predominantly left. And in doing that, they're going to actually basically steal elections. So anyway, she's doing, listen to that. I haven't had time to go through. I wanted this guy here, Coleman, very intelligent man. And he took on this idiot, Dave Smith, who I just can't stand. But it's a 3-hour debate. I've seen some clips. I've loved the clips I've listened to. He's destroying Dave Smith. I can't believe Dave Smith's acolytes think he won this debate. But anyway, from the bits I've seen, he destroyed him. I can't watch. I just got to get 3 hours to sit down and listen to it. So I'll see if I can do that before next week, give some more feedback. Coleman Hughes, that's it. If you haven't listened to this, I'll give you a listen. I played this the other day, but I'll give everyone a listen tonight. Well worth the listen.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to get straight to this because my topic tonight leads on from the comments that Will just made. Let me see if I've got this right. The UK gave citizenship to a man whose name literally translates to jihadi from Syria. After receiving that gift from the British people, he was arrested for rape. A British judge thought it was appropriate to give him bail and let him back out on the streets. While on bail, he slaughtered Jews at a synagogue on the Jewish holiday of Yom Kippur. I'm done. I'm done with the euphemisms. I'm done with the crocodile tears. I'm done with the calls for unity. I'm done being told not to hate. And I'm done skirting around uncomfortable truths. So let's list them. Uncomfortable truth 1. Multiculturalism hasn't merely failed. It has embedded sectarian violence on the streets of the UK and cost countless lives, most recently the lives of Adrian Daubly and Melvin Kravitz in Manchester. Again, strength and love to their families. Uncomfortable truth 2, diversity is not our strength. It has never been our strength. And in fact, it has now become our greatest weakness economically and culturally. And I'm yet to hear any coherent argument for its value that doesn't default to, well, we get good restaurants out of it, which isn't good enough justification for complete cultural and social fracture. And besides, we've got the recipes now anyway. Uncomfortable truth 3. Islamism is a cancer on the UK, and more citizens will die as a result of appeasing it. We need to say these uncomfortable truths loudly, and whilst we still can. Islamophobia laws are coming, ladies and gentlemen, as the great Christopher Hitchens predicted 16 years ago.
It is very urgent business, ladies and gentlemen, I beseech you. Resist it while you still can, and before the right to complain is taken away from you, which will be the next, thing. You will be told you can't complain because you're Islamophobic. The term is already being introduced into the culture as if it was an accusation of race hatred, for example, or bigotry, whereas it's only the objection to the preachings of a very extreme and absolutist religion. Watch out for these symptoms. They are just symptoms of surrender.
I've watched that clip so many times and it gets more poignant with every watch. Alex, I'll start with you. I just listed those uncomfortable truths. Do you actually think that this time politicians will actually listen as well?
No, it's particularly this government. It has had no acknowledgement of the threat of Islamism, has been completely ignored. It's been cricket, actually, from Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister. No, it has been. Don't lie. I haven't seen a single statement, not a single statement from the Prime Minister, not a single statement from David Lammy, Sadiq Khan, all these people who, when the United Kingdom rally was happening and 25 arrests took place, over hundreds of thousands of people that were there, were putting out statements on X, going on podiums talking about the far right. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. They are bigots and they should be called out for it.
Kai, I think what Alex is getting to here is the question of degree, in that after the riots in Southport, they were so quick to attack the far right and they took action so quickly. I haven't heard anywhere near the same level of passion when it comes to addressing the cancer of Islamism. Surely that is fair.
I'm not sure. I mean, look, I haven't been at the speeches that David Lammy and other members of the front bench have been making to the Jewish community. That's been their priority, obviously.
Well, Google, you should try it. It's this thing where you put in search and you find what you can...
And if you did watch it, you would have seen a Jewish audience that was furious with David Lammy and this government. But I've never seen anything quite like the response of that audience in terms of the heckling that he received, and it was justified.
That's the passion, which is your question. Look, I agree that lots of this government lack the conviction and the clear statement of intent that, for instance, some politicians on the hard left do. I think progressives are really struggling to meet this moment when it seems like the political grounds are shifting. But they need to come out and give a muscular, robust defence of multiculturalism, of diversity, because this is how we slide into increasing division and authoritarianism. Is when people use violence as a tool and as a Trojan horse to try and unwind decades of improvement in a country's laws, in improvement of human rights, for instance, use violence as a way to further ideological ends. And I think it's wrong.
Unbelievable. One, I couldn't agree. The first speaker you heard there was a guy. I'll just get myself up. That'll do us for sharing today. I'll get my ugly mug back up. I apologise. Cassini, we got a... Oh, I'm loving Cassini. I hope you're following me on Cassini. Cassini on X. I'm liking your views. Islam is a cancer on civilization. Yeah, I agree with a lot of that. The hard part you get torn is, like, for me, I've met a few Muslim people and they're really good people. And I think there's got to be a fact that there's some... there are a bunch of Islamic people that are decent human beings. It's very hard to defend that, though, at the moment. It really is. And we've got to make sure, whatever way we do about that, and we've got this on our policy platform, that Australia remains a predominantly Christian country. In our policy platform, I actually believe, which will get the eye of a few people that follow me, that we've got to officially become a Christian country before it's too late. So I actually think that is the way to address it. But, you know, and if you're going to come into our country, you've got to adopt our Christian culture, because it's part of our constitution, which is one of the reasons I'm arguing that we need to become a republic. You've only got to look at the monarchy in England and how Charles has embraced the Muslim faith. It's a bit of a worry. What's your second comment? The sooner the West wakes up to the fact, the quicker we can get on with human flourishing. Yeah, I won't disagree. Good points, Cassini. I like it. Keep them coming through. Will Kingston, the first speaker in that clip, he's an ex-Aussie. So he's over there. He works for GB News. He's really good to follow. He's a smart guy. And I could not agree more. the bigger issue we've got in our society, which what Will brought up, is this diversity and multiculturalism. It divides us. It doesn't unite us. It's we've got in again one of our policies, which we announced quite some time ago, to get rid of the term multiculturalism out of our society, to get rid of diversity and unify under one identified Australian culture, one that respects that flag and the people that built this nation and their beliefs, their values, their ideas. The sooner we get to that, the sooner we're going to be a much better nation for it. But it is interesting at the end that leftist, obviously he's a leftist, as soon as Will made that point, he just went bang into play mode. You know, he had the rehearsed lines there ready to go. We need a full defence, a full force defence of multiculturalism and diversity. Dickhead, he just said they were the problems. Why would you defend something that's the problems? So I don't get the left. I mean, and it's obvious that multiculturalism and diversity doesn't work. Now, I've got nothing against people who want to keep a little bit of their culture in their life. So, you know, I coach a bunch of kids that have come from Indonesia, Vietnam, China, Sri Lanka, you name it. I've coached it. Lovely kids, lovely families, got no problem with it. But they're more Australian than a lot of our bloody Australians are. They celebrate Australia Day. They don't have any hesitation about waving a flag. They appreciate the opportunities this country gives to them. A lot of them don't want the multiculturalism. They want to be Australians. So we've got to get to that point where it is about becoming Australian and the type of life we can present to families from all over the globe when we get our proverbial shit together. Cassini's on fire. I like this, Cassini. I'm not pronouncing that wrong. The sooner the West wakes up, we got that. We'll share it again. Look at the PEW polls. What the hell's a PEW poll? Don't know. There is massive support amongst so-called moderate Muslims for violence in defense of the Quran. That's true. There's a lot of things in the Quran that aren't good. So, for example, us kafirs, non-believers, they can, according to the Quran, it's quite acceptable for a Muslim to lie to us. No problem as well, especially in defense of the Quran and the Prophet. When was the last time anyone saw a Muslim peace protest? Yeah, good point. We keep putting them up because the problem isn't with the lay cultural Muslim. Yeah, agree with that. The problem is with Islamism and jihadism. Now, I agree with that to a point, but it's hard to differentiate. For example, the lay Muslim doesn't come out a lot against, I think they're there, but whether it's a lack of courage, which I totally get, they don't muck around. If you come up against the radicals, they'll kill you without any hesitation. But they've got to start, the moderates, for the better word, instead of the lay Muslims, the moderate Muslims have got to come out and speak out against it. A lot of them in the UAE, for example, do, and they can't believe that we're accepting so many of them. But we've got to hear those voices far, far more, a lot more. So I just hope Trump does what he's going to do and he can get us to a point where this Gaza conflict finishes, and we can get some peace and things can settle so we can develop those relationships, but we'll see. I actually think a lot of the problems in Australia aren't actually with the Muslims. It's what those people I showed you before, the white liberals. When I say liberals, the leftist. The leftist women, the leftist men, the anarchists, the socialists. There was an argument this week put forward that the pro-Palestinian marches are just a fake for the communist and the anarchist. And I think there's a lot to that. I think they're using the Gaza war to push their anarchist agenda and their Marxist agenda. I think there is a very much a lot to it, which is why I think even when this peace is sorted in Gaza, I got a funny idea. These protests aren't going to stop. Casino. I hope I pronounced this right. It's called Takaya. Never heard of that before. No, I've read a bit on that. I've never heard of that. Oh, I see what you're saying. Takaya is lying in defense of Islam. She's putting a lot through. Here is the problem. I'm assuming you're saying, Cassina, that Takaya is the problem. There's a whole bunch of problems in there. The biggest problem we've got is multiculturalism and diversity. if you come from a Muslim country and you want to live in Australia, you have to adopt our Australian cultures. End of story. You go outside that, there's got to be a consequence to it. So, we're not going to accept Sharia law. We're not going to accept a lot of the Quran. You're coming to a Christian country. We have Christian principles, Christian ideas, Christian values. And that's whether you're an atheist, a Muslim, a Hindu, whatever. Australia's got to be based on Christian principles because that's what we got built on. Casina's come again. I'm loving this, Casina. Keep putting it through. Muslims consider the Quran the direct, true, and immutable word of God. Therefore, it can never be changed or reformed. Therefore, Islam will never reform. Christianity has reformed. Again, very true. I like it. You obviously have done a little bit of research into this, Casina. If you ever want to come on the program, let me know. So I would love a conversation like this. It'd be actually good to get yourself, Casina, and even a Muslim come on and to have that exchange and that debate and try and get to the bottom of what's fact and fiction. Like I said, I've coached a couple of Muslim kids, beautiful kids, and the parents I never had an issue with. So it'll be interesting. And once you get them alone, what I found is they will readily admit some things. So I had to put, this is going back 2 years. So for those who don't know, I'm a basketball coach, obviously. And when you coach basketball, you get kids from different backgrounds, right? And a few years ago, I had a team that was made up of white Aussies, Christians. I had 2 Jewish kids. And this is when October 7th all happened. And I had 2 Muslim kids in there and a couple of atheists. And then I had myself. And I was always picking up the Muslim boys because otherwise I wouldn't get to games or training. The parents just couldn't afford it. I actually shouted them their subs. Really good kids, had a bit of talent in there. And because I was picking them up and dropping off all the time, the conversations we had were fascinating. I found out an awful lot about the Quran. So I had Sleepyhead here. He was in the car with me when I took him to training because we trained in an outdoor court. So he would come along. And initially the boys were just petrified of him. They just didn't want to go near him because they hate dogs. Now one of those boys owns 2 dogs because he fell in love with JJ. So you can change the way people feel. One of the things these boys said to me is that he was really interested in Christianity. He was really interested. He was asking me a lot of questions about Jesus, what we believed in, all these things. And he even said, that sounds so much better than Islam. And I said, well, why don't you convert? He goes, if I converted, I'd be disowned and I'd be targeted. So there's a fair bit of that goes on within the Islamic community. So even if people who go to these, big, massive protests or whatever, a lot of them are doing it because they feel they're compelled to, and they're worried about the repercussions if they don't. We've got to be able to give a lot of those people the courage to come out and say they don't want to accept it anymore. Whether it's a less radical version of Islam that they want to adopt, or even if they want to jump across into a Christian faith, or even in the most extreme measures, some of them might want to jump across into a Jewish faith. But, I just think the Christian faith should be our national faith. There'll be a lot that would argue against that. But in my belief, Christianity is the one faith that promotes love, compassion, understanding, and would eliminate, if everyone adopted it, a lot of the issues we have in our country right now. That's just my opinion. Feel free to disagree with it. I'm going to show Muslims consider the Quran. Yeah, we've already shown that one. Sorry, Cassani. There are many problems. The fact that Islam will never reform as Christianity has is the main problem. There is. That is a problem. I'm a conservative, but Muslims are far more conservative than me. Mind you, there are issues between the different, as people who studied it any bit, between the different Islamic faiths as well. So, I forget the 2 names for the different type of Islamists, but they hate each other, and they've conducted genocide on each other over the journey as well. So it's such a long and interesting history to look into, but they are definitely conservative. They're definitely brutal. This is the radical Islamist. So, and we've seen that year after year, decade after decade. Anyone who can't see that's just not looking. But there is definitely good Muslims out there as well. So we've got to find a solution to it, because if we don't, England is the UK, United Kingdom, it's the canary in the coal mine. It's coming to Australia. And if it gets out of control too quickly, and the birth rates are definitely something that's an issue. People talk about civil war. I reckon England, the United Kingdom, is what do they call it? A tinderbox. It's ready to explode. If you have any more kids that get killed, and it's proven that it's a Muslim fanatic or something like that, look out. I think in England she'll go off. Because it's ready over there, and I think we're heading very much in the same direction here. So hopefully we can turn that around before we don't. Kasana, I'm gonna have to give you some sort of award. Yes, Sunni and Shia, that's it, have been in a blood feud for 1400 years. So it's interesting with what you say about the Christian faith. Yeah, it has evolved a bit, but I do think sometimes the Christian faith has probably evolved too much. And it depends on which strand of the faith you're talking about. I'm a Catholic faith. Now that's evolved, but nowhere near as much, say, as some of the Protestant faiths or the Anglican faiths, where they accept, homosexuality and all that sort of thing in same-sex marriage. The Catholic faith still doesn't. And personally, I'm glad that that's the case. You've got to stick by, what your teachings of your faith are. That doesn't mean they're going to throw gays off the roof or whatever in the thing. They respect their rights. I just don't think they should be out of marriage. I think traditional marriage is between a man and a woman, which I agree with, but that's just me. Others wouldn't. That's fine. And in the Catholic faith, they'd accept that. So, it has evolved to a point, but I do think it's starting to swing back. One thing I read, there's a lot of Catholics, for example, returning to Latin Mass. They find it a lot more spiritual in the way it's going about it. So there's parts to evolving, there's parts to conserving, all that sort of thing. But I think that radical element is the part you've got to be worried about. Ex-Catholic Cassini, well, we've got to fix that up. Got to come back before it's too late. We're all going to end that time. I'm what you would call a poor Catholic. I've always believed in it, but I'm probably worse than a person is an atheist, because I feel very passionate about my faith, but I don't live it as much as I should. And for example, we're getting really D&M here. I thought I was finished, but Cassini's got me going. So there's I can't remember which part of the Mass it is, but it's a point where you're proclaiming your faith to all the parishioners at the same time. So it's a declaration of your faith. And you're asking forgiveness for your sins, for what you have done and what have you failed to do. So today, I didn't, for example, get my Bible reading, which I'm doing each day. And there's other things that I wanted to do that I didn't do. So I didn't say my rosary, all that sort of thing. But there's other things that I could have been doing that I didn't get done today, and I could have got it done. Sometimes we all get to a point where life just gets on top of you. I don't think it's depression, but I just had one of those shitty days, and I felt like not doing anything. And then, by the end of every time you have one of those days, you start off being pissed off with the world. And then by the end of the day, you're pissed off with yourself because you've lost the day, which is where I got to today. So there's different things. We all have things we fail in. Don't know why, Cassini, you're an ex-Catholic. If you're ever up for it, you should come on the show. You sound like you'd be fascinating. Here we go, another message. A poll conducted a few years ago, half of British Muslims want homosexuality to be a jailable offence. Well, that's just absurd, there was something else they were trying to bring in. Well, yeah, that's right. Marriages with cousins. I think it's actually bizarrely still allowed in the United Kingdom, but because with a lot, especially the Pakistani immigrants, a lot of them marrying family members, and a lot of people have got some concern about that. So they're trying to ban that in England, but Starmer's not going to ban it because he's too scared of the repercussions of the Muslim community. So I'm now a deist. I hope I'm pronouncing that way. A deist. What's a deist? Come on, because I'll hold on for that one last explanation. Is that the Crusader types? What do they call it? The Tao Vault or whatever? God commands it or something like that. So I think that could be right. So you'd be interested in my basketball team. We call them, for no other reasons, the Templars. There's a lot of reason behind that, but I was fascinated by the Templar history in the Crusades and the history all up and how they were taken down at the end. So There's a lot of mystery surrounding that. But if you look into the actual history of it, it's forgetting all the other stuff. The history of it was quite fascinating. I got onto that through what's those books by Dan Brown? I think I've got it here. The Da Vinci Code. So I've got all these books. I got right into the Da Vinci Codes and the Crusades. I'm not too sure whether that's what you're talking about, Cassini, but I'll babble on a bit. Maybe you can explain that to me a little bit more. So, yeah, but the Crusades themselves, there was an interesting, someone was putting down the Crusades. There was a debate on social media the other day, and someone was talking about the evil of the Crusades. If you actually listen to, which is maybe where we're heading to, is a modern crusade. The reason you had for the Crusades was because the Islamic nations really expanded in the 1500s, I think it was, around about that time, and they invaded Europe, and they were taking over large sections of Eastern Europe and Spain and basically North Africa, and Christian nations had to fight back. And they pushed back to liberate Christian centers such as Jerusalem and all that. God wills it. That's what Das Vault represents. So that's when the first crusade started, and then it just went over 2 or 3. And someone tried to paint out, these crusades were an evil thing. They actually were inspired by legitimate concerns about being invaded, because they were invaded. And they pushed back and they wanted to liberate the lands. So originally in Syria, in Egypt, in what is now Israel, even in Turkey, there was large Christian populations. But as Islam grew, it invaded all these countries, oppressed those people, slaughtered it, committed a lot of genocide. And the Christians in Europe considered it was their duty to push back against that and go liberate those countries. So it wasn't like an evil, we're going to conquer the world thing. It was to liberate what were formerly Christian countries and areas. Okay, Cassini, let's have a look. I believe in a rational, non-interfering God. A God has created the world but does not intervene in the world. Interesting. Yes, the Templar history is fascinating. I'm currently listening to a podcast on the history of the Crusades. Well, yeah, I've read a bunch of books on it, but podcasts would be easy, wouldn't they? I found it fascinating. So, and I was a bit umming and ahhing whether to, because whenever you do a sports team, you're trying to figure out what your mascot going to be. And there was pros and cons about the Templars, but I've never had any pushback against it. And even those Muslim kids I had in my team, which I talked about, I gave them the option because we have got a logo. I wish I had it here on the thing. I don't have a uniform on it. We've got a logo. It's actually, I'll get it up. I'll share it. We've got a logo on, I'll show our little thing because I think it's interesting. And it was based on the Red Cross of the Templars. So I've got to share. What am I sharing? Just select the tab to share window. I'll see if I can get it up. Shares. Going to E. What am I looking for? Sorry, guys, I'll be with you in a tick. I'll just give you a look at the logo I put on because I think this is actually really interesting as well. This logo had the Christian Red Cross. Here we go. I'll just bring this up. Oh, damn it. Come on, open. Sometimes my computer takes its time. I'll see if that opens and I can share that. Is it going to share photos? Sorry, guys, it's taking its time. So while that's coming up, we had it's this one here. You can see the Red Cross in there. I'm just trying to get a. We'll use this for, as you can see, a GoFundMe banner. But, oh, damn. Let's try something else and go back one bit. I'm in the wrong area. Sorry, guys, bear with me. I haven't shared from a file. It's always from an internet thing before, so we'll give you a better look here. But here we go, BNBO local pages. Coat of arms. Colour. And that's it there. All right, so I don't know whether that's sharing. I'll have a quick look. So it's this one here in the middle. And that's our coat of arms. So it's got a Latin saying under the bottom of it. And, oh, my God, I know what to do to share it. Oh, no, I don't. It's got a Latin logo under the bottom of it, which means strength, honor, and unity. So we wanted to take it on a real, what am I opening it with? Sorry, guys, I just want to give you a closer look to it, and I can share it. Here we go. Yeah, I wanted to give it a real Crusader feel, just me. And I was a bit worried whether it would turn thing off. In fact, quite the place. For quite the opposite. Here we go. Share. There you get it up. So Fortudo, honor, and unitas. That means strength, honor, and unity, which is what you want in your basketball team. The wreath is more of a Roman thing, and that shield is an Anglo thing. But the red cross represents the Templar Warriors, which is our logo. So when you've got all that in there, with that thing, I was really concerned with these Muslim kids. So I actually showed them the logo, explained it to them what it was about, and I said, listen, we can do a special one if you like, and we'll do the red crescent if you like, and put that on there instead of the Christian cross. They didn't want it. They loved the Templar history. They thought it was great. And you got to remember, Templars were at war with Muslims. So I was really taken aback by that. They loved it. So I just thought that is fascinating. And that's what our logo, our shield you see on our stuff represents. So it's got a bit of Anglo heritage in there. It's got the Latin, which is a Catholic heritage, the red Templar cross, and then the Roman wreath that's going across, which in sport represents the golden wreath that you used to win at the Olympics many years ago. So, but these Muslim boys were quite happy to wear it. So I found that really fascinating. So, yeah, the cross of St. George as well. So I'll keep putting cassette. So we want it to be something that the kids really wanted to, but it meant something. Keep putting, she's brilliant, great. Yes, the Templar cross is a great design. We loved it, actually. We're a bit worried when we first put it together. Once we put it together, it came up really well. Crusader Templar podcast on YouTube. Ever Sherbrooke. I'll definitely have a listen. Nice logo. Thank you. So, Cassini, you should reach out to me if you ever want to come on to have a discussion about this. I find this fascinating. I think it would really be good. I think it would even be better if we got even someone who's a decent a Muslim who wanted to come on and really discuss these things. I think that would be fascinating, and we could certainly exchange. I could be the Christian. You could be, I don't know how you pronounce that, but you could let us know on the thing, and get someone of the Muslims and exchange those things. So if you ever want to come on, just let me know. That's fine, because I love this. It's great. But yeah, I think it's time. I got to get the supermarket before it shuts. What time are we on? 9:23. We're doing pretty well. Cassini, thank you for contributing. I really love that. That was fascinating. I love your stuff. Like I said, feel free to reach out. But that sort of stuff, that historical stuff, I love. And I'm sure a lot of people out there watching this would have loved it. So really like that engagement. Thank you very much. Anyway, as Cassini said, we have been going on for a bit. We've gone D&M. I really love that exchange. We'll be back here next week. Tomorrow I'll be up with the Charlie Kirk Bible read in the Bob Rant, and me and JJ. There he is. He's having a good old snooze. What a life. I've always said if reincarnation is a thing, I'd love to be reincarnated as a dog and come back as a dog in a loving family, or with a loving owner. Best life. So anyway, yeah, no worries, Cassini. I appreciate that. Keep contributing through the comments, though, over the coming weeks. Love it. All right. Okay, guys, that's it from me. God bless. Good night. Hope you're liking the policy we're putting out there. Can't wait to get it to our politicians. We will see you tomorrow and for the main podcast next week. Hope you're enjoying. Bye for now.